SuperTalk. I'm in the Trustmark studio. My name's Mandy Gunasekara, and I am the guest host today. I am very excited to jump right into our first interview of today's show. I've got Ginny Gentles, who is a senior fellow with the Independent Women's Forum. Ginny is a longtime school choice advocate and former state and federal education policy leader. She has worked on Capitol Hill as a senior appointee in the George W. Bush administration. She worked in Florida. She worked in Canada. She's worked all over, and her work has appeared in the National Review, Newsweek, City Journal, Real Clear Education, and Town Hall. Ginny, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Mandy. Happy to be here with you, and happy National School Choice Week.
Yeah, what a great issue to celebrate. And I really want to talk about that this week being National School Choice Week, which is meant to highlight the importance of letting parents choose the education options best for their children. What a great concept that shouldn't be novel, but it certainly is in some places. Can you tell us what you're doing in terms of working to bring attention to this issue, especially within this week?
Well, the Independent Women's Forum is a strong supporter of school choice, and that means empowering parents to find the education option that's the best fit for their child. And that sometimes people think school choice just means pulling their child out of the public school, sending them into the private school. It's actually much broader than that. It could be that the child needs to attend a public school in the district, the next county over, or a public charter school, a public magnet school, or we certainly have seen a huge rise in homeschooling. So there's a wide array of school choice options. I feel that I'm part of a school choice movement that ensures that parents are aware of their options, and also a movement that expands state policies to ensure that parents are empowered to make that choice and that education funding follows the child.
Empowering parents seems to be so important and really has become a front and center issue in the world of COVID. Perhaps a silver lining of the pandemic is that more parents are really paying attention to what their children are learning in school, how school decisions impact their children in particular, and options that they have available. How has the issue and the interest in school choice evolved throughout the COVID pandemic?
Well, this is not something that we ever expected in the school choice movement, that the public schools would pave the way for an expansion of school choice, but that's certainly what has happened. I think by school districts being so incredibly unresponsive to the needs of parents, to the needs of students, by remaining closed for over a year in many parts of the country, and by offering lousy remote learning, and then, as you said, by exposing children to ideology that have absolutely nothing to do with academic instruction, and in fact are a distraction and a concern to parents. Parents' eyes are now open, and parents are demanding more freedom, more options, and state legislators have been listening. So what we've seen as an evolution over the last 2 years is a huge increase in the percentage of parents who support school choice. When you look at polling at the beginning of the pandemic, and then polling last year, it went up significantly to the point that 80% of public school K-12 parents support school choice. So the vast majority of parents are saying, yes, this is what we want, and legislators are listening. Many people call 2021 the year of school choice, and that's because close to 20 states expanded existing school choice programs or introduced new ones, including education savings accounts, which are flexible spending accounts that parents can access to pay for tuition, services, curriculum, just basically meet the educational needs of their child. So we've seen increases in polling, expanded school choice options legislatively, and an increase in the numbers of parents that are taking advantage of options. Homeschooling, for example, and I'm talking about real homeschooling, not looking over the shoulder as a Zoom butler in remote instruction.
Right.
Real homeschooling was 11% of K-12 households, households with children in K-12. 11% of those households were homeschooling at some point last year, and I think that number is probably going to hold steady.
Well, there's certainly been an amazing growth in the interest, and then an amazing growth in the resources that are available to parents. I had those discussions myself in certain school districts where, certain policies come down that I didn't agree with, certain mandates that I believed were counter to the best interests of my children. So it's good to know that there are options out there and there are good resources available. Ginny, is there a website that you could direct folks to if they're interested in learning more about school choice in general, and then school choice that may be available in the state of Mississippi?
There are a lot of resources out there, and I'm glad that you asked that and mentioned that. We really don't want parents to feel trapped. I think those are the bleakest moments in the pandemic, when schools were closed, when kids were just so miserable, when no learning was happening, and the parents just felt so helpless. We never want parents to have that feeling again. So I encourage parents to go to schoolchoiceweek.com. That is the official website of National School Choice Week. It has a lot of information on the events that are happening this week. Happy things like buildings being lit up in the colors of yellow and red, the National School Choice Week colors. But set that aside. If you dig a little deeper in the website, go to the parent information on the website. You'll find state by state information about the school choice options in your state. So schoolchoiceweek.com is a great resource, and additional organizations that are there to help parents in Mississippi, parents all around the country, would be American Federation for Children, so federationforchildren.org, and EdChoice.org. There are a lot of organizations out there that are fighting to expand educational options and working hard to inform parents about their existing options.
No, that's really, really great information, and hopefully folks will follow up and look into it. I know that I certainly have in the past when I felt like I was in one of those situations where I was boxed in a way. Nothing makes a parent more furious or unsettled than feeling like your child is exposed to something that is negative or potentially harmful, and there's nothing you can do about it. But what you're telling us today is you should never feel like that. There's always something that can be done, and you've shared some really great resources. I want to shift really quickly. We're having a debate, and this is another issue I know you've weighed in on in terms of school curriculum, particular critical race theory. We're having a debate right now in the state where we've had some of our state representatives introduce legislation that doesn't necessarily ban critical race theory, but ban the idea that you can teach children that they are better or not based on sex, race, gender, those sorts of things. Now, some of the criticism is, well, it's not being taught in Mississippi, so why would we ban it? What's your take on that, having been on the front lines in places where CRT is an embedded part of the curriculum, and some parents may feel like, man, I wish I'd weighed in earlier and actually paid attention a little bit more?
I think what you're acknowledging here is that there's a bit of a semantics game going on. People will say CRT is not being taught in elementary schools, for example. And sure, maybe they're correct. CRT, if critical race theory, as it was maybe originally proposed as something to take a look at in a framework to examine and analyze in graduate school. Sure, maybe that official framework, legal term, is not being officially taught. But absolutely, all those other things that you mentioned are being taught in schools across the country, and parents aren't making it up. You can't tell parents that they're not seeing exactly what they're seeing. In Fairfax County, within the last week, there was a privilege bingo that was telling students to identify themselves as whether or not they had privilege. And it even included being a military child, a child of a military family. That would be
Oh,
something
wow.
that has privilege. But these kinds of approaches to dividing children and separating them into affinity groups and ranking them, and this is what parents are concerned about. And let's set aside the semantics game. Let's get to the essence of the poison that's being spread throughout schools and has come from, I would say, from colleges and teachers' colleges, and those teachers have been taking them out into the schools. And this is not a red or a blue state issue. It's not liberal versus conservative. This is just there's an entire generation of young teachers, young woke teachers, that are really eager to pull this information off of wherever they're getting it, Pinterest, other sites on the web where teachers go to put their materials together, and to provide this as part of their curriculum. So when your school district says, oh, it's not something that we have officially purchased as a curriculum purchase to then have teachers teach, maybe that's true too. But parents should absolutely scratch the surface, dig a little deeper, and find out what their individual teachers are doing. And then when school districts are um, contracting with entities that are supportive of this approach, then parents should pay attention to those contracts and ask that they be addressed.
Well, Ginny, thank you for that. Thank you for laying it out and for your work. I would encourage anyone listening. You can look Ginny Gentles up on the Independent Women's Forum website. Check out her work. It's very informative. It's very helpful. And at the bottom line, it's about empowering parents to make sure our students have the type of education that they should. Ginny, thank you for joining us. And for our listeners out there, stay tuned. We've got more coming up after the break.